Hello, my name is Chris Hotop. I am a high school government teacher at Princeton High School, located just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm also a Grand Canyon University graduate student in the master's program for gifted education. In my time thus far with the school, I've spent some time studying the difference between a gifted brain or a highly intelligent brain and that of which one you would call of a normal student. This video is going to be brief, and it will kind of describe some of the findings that I found, as well as provide like an argument on how I see those differences, why they occur, whether it's be nature or nurture. When I first started kind of thinking about this type of question, I really kind of thought that it was a genetic thing. After all, a lot of the friends that I grew up with who I found to be highly intelligent had a or both parents that were also pretty intelligent people. And a lot of the students that are gifted, when I meet with their parents, I can kind of tell that they just have that kind of intelligent factor. And so as I was looking through the research, though, really a lot of the findings as far as finding specific genes that are evident in all intelligent people, it's really been kind of disappointing and inconclusive that there really isn't anything that they can really sit there and say in stone that this is, if you have this gene, then you're going to be intelligent. Really, probably the biggest difference that I have found is in the physical traits of a brain. One of the probably more convincing arguments is that the thickness of the prefrontal cortex in intelligent brains is thicker, and that can be determined mostly because of a prolonged period of maturing of that part of the brain in the adolescent to young adult ages of like 7 to 13. And so that's going to be kind of the basis of one of the reasons when I get to later in the video when I talk about nature versus nurture. I want to transition into the difference between ability and achievement. Ability is having the power, skill, and talent to master something or achieve some sort of feat. Whereas achievement is the actual reaching some sort of goal that you set using courage, work ethic, or such. Ability is not necessarily something that is seen, so I kind of call it like a hidden trait. It's not really something that can be measured necessarily. You have IQ tests and things like that, but through my studies, I've kind of found that, IQ tests only kind of gear themselves towards one type of gifted person, and so it's hard to really kind of grow or measure ability. Whereas achievement, you can have achievement tests, you got to reach a certain standard or you have to reach a certain goal and you can be there. So it kind of goes along with this question as far as, okay, well, how do you determine which? So kind of going through there with the idea of nature versus nurture, I want to go back to that gene trait that I kind of was talking about earlier. Research has shown that there are specific or certain types of gene patterns in the brain that are found in intelligent brains, and they're active and used and this and that. But some of the research also shows that some of those genes are also found in brains that are not as matured and intelligent. And so it kind of begs the question: well, what kind of factors evoke that activity out of these genes? And probably the easiest argument would be environment. If kids are put into certain environments, then those genes are going to be active and show that intelligence, whereas a student that has that same gene but is never put into an environment that stimulates those genes, then that's not going to be something that comes out. But probably the more principal argument for my idea of nurture being a primary factor in intelligence is the idea of going back to that cortex, that prefrontal cortex. The greatest amount of growth is during the ages of 7 to 12 or 13. And, if the environment doesn't provoke challenging and creative atmospheres, well, then the brain is not going to have the chance to mature and grow for those periods. So really, there's going to be a lot of importance placed on the primary and intermediate schools and the classrooms. If those environments provoke growth and stimulate the brain and that prefrontal cortex, prolonging that period of maturity, well, then those brains are going to become more highly and cognitively intelligent and advanced. And so I really kind of argue it towards nurture. Of course, I think that the easy way to answer it is that there's going to be nature and nurture. Naturally, the brain's going to have more or less of a certain gene or trait, but really it's nurture that's kind of the springboard factor on, okay, can we take this brain and make it to show it its ability and get it to use its ability to make those achievements. I teach in a very diverse, culturally diverse, and underprivileged population. Most of the students in my classes are on free and reduced lunch. They come from a single parent family. That parent might work more than one job. A lot of my students have to go home and take care of younger siblings, work for, to help support the family. And so I think that that environment, that nurture, goes beyond just the classroom that we provide. The environments that they are at home, that nurturing that's going on at home. If you take two students with the same traits and same genes, one goes home to a family where the parents value education, they read books to their kids during that maturing time period, that student's going to have more brain activity, more opportunity for that prefrontal cortex to grow and mature. Whereas you take another student that has to go home and they don't have the parent reading books to them, the parent may not be around very often, and they're not going to have that value of education, well, then that student's not going to have the same nurturing environment to help those traits that are naturally in the brain to actually mature. And so really for me, I kind of share this idea that nurturing a student is going to have a profound impact on their intelligence later on. I see it a lot in my classroom. I've got a lot of students that are fairly behind as far as reading and arithmetic and things like that. And so, I really think that the nurturing portion is really the biggest factor. Thanks for listening.